tell me the story of how you ended up with this thing?
Yeah, so I still had my old car, so I think I just won my debut, and in my head I'm like, I need a cool car. I need a cool car. That was what I was fixated on. Sounds stupid now thinking about it, but I was like, I need a cool car, so I was thinking about getting I wanted a motorcycle, but I was like, for sure there's just too many accidents around here, so I was like, I better not get a motorcycle. I was looking at like Tesla and Corvettes and stuff like that. I'm like, God, that's just not maybe a Tesla would have been better, but definitely not a Corvette or anything like that. Would have just been stupid.
Why?
Just because you're not gonna make any money on it if you want to sell it. It just wasn't a good idea. But this was like $20,000. I'm like, oh, I could get that. It'll be way cheaper. And so I just paid it off and I was like, now I don't got a car payment and I got what I want. So
you just paid cash for it?
No, I put a big down payment on it and I was paying monthly on it. And my mom's like, why don't you just pay it off? You're paying extra for interest.
Yeah.
So that's where my mom comes in handy. She's smarter than me in those ways. So I just paid it off and now I own it. So it's super nice.
Pushing it to the metal. Pushing it to the metal.
And it's thick.
Yeah, hardly knew how to. I had kind of learned a little bit when I was like 15. My dad showed me. I never figured out, like, I could never drive it. I just had the idea of it. So when I went and checked it out, I didn't ask them to test drive it because I didn't know how. I wasn't comfortable driving it.
Yeah.
So after I got it, I'm like, all right. Made sure they're like waiting for me to drive off, and I was like, I killed it a few times, but I got on the highway and cruised it home.
You were saying yesterday that like you're like convinced you'll be a Conor McGregor type and you'll make that type of money. Like what kind of like millionaire do you think you would be? Like what would you buy?
Now it's like you go through different mindsets. I don't need a lot to be happy. I want the people around me. I want Tim to be set. I want him to be well off. I want JX, my YouTube guy. You know, I want my mom and dad, my family. Like I want to make money for them almost. Like so we're all well off.
Yeah.
I want to buy like a compound, like kind of like Cowboys Ranch, but with tiny houses, and just all of my friends, like training partners, like we live in this compound, and we just, you know, we have our own little community, grow our own food, have our own ranch almost. Like my mom wants goats and chickens, like just like build our own community. So that's kind of what I would like. The goal, the idea is like make enough money to be able to do that. As far as cars and like, I don't really care. I really don't care about cars too much. Like this, I would be perfectly fine if I had this and it's paid off and I'm good. Like,
yeah.
But money's not what's motivating me to fight next. Like I just want to fight because I really love this shit. I really just,
yeah.
I don't care about the money right now. But I know it's gonna be there and I know it's gonna happen, but more money, more problems is a real thing. Like you buy more stuff, then you have more payments. Now you have to make that money next month because you have all these extra payments. So,
yeah.
Like I said, this is paid off. Like I put a good amount of money on my house. So once I sell that, I can, you know, buy a house I'm gonna be able to put a down payment on. You know, I'd like to pay off a house pretty fast and then just start saving that money for a compound and be able to pay the people that are helping me.
That's funny, man. You have like a very like intelligent approach on money now, but after your first fight, all you wanted was a cool car.
Oh yeah, it definitely changed. Like the most money I made $100,000 after my Andre fight because of the bonus.
Yeah.
And like I also went through foot surgery shortly after, so I had the most money I've ever had in my life. I'm 23 years old, and I was most like depressed I've ever been. A lot had to do with like going through surgery. Like I couldn't work out. I was gaming all day. Like my relationship with Danny wasn't healthy. Like I wasn't really talking to my friends much because I was just gaming and sitting. I couldn't drive anywhere. I wasn't doing anything. So yeah, I realized quickly that money does not make you happy at all. And like it's something that you could tell someone if they've never made a lot of money. You could tell them that, but that doesn't make sense to them. until you experience it. That's just something you got to experience to realize that money doesn't make you happy. Like that's just the truth. But yeah, your priorities change a lot. Like now, it's like the most important things, the relationships I have with Danny, with my, you know, I'm a lot closer with my parents now. Like with Tim, with my JX, my friends. Like that's what's most important. Is like your relationships with your friends and family. But before that, it's like what motivated me was just money. Like just get money, and chicks. Like so it's
Money and chicks?
Money and chicks. Like, and it's still there. I'm not gonna lie and say like that's not what I think about, because it's definitely still there. It's just conditioned from when I was 16 years old and I had this idea of I want to be rich and famous and have, like, that's just in my brain. Like, but it's, I know that's not what makes me happy, but it's still, I'm 25 years old, and like when money comes, it's like it with your head. It really does. But I'm definitely not perfect, but I'm aware of the that I know that doesn't make me happy, but it's still there. It's still like,
yeah, temptation.
It's temptation.
Do you think it's even possible? If you do blow up overnight and you're all of a sudden millions of dollars and everybody knows who you are, you think it's possible?
The thing that I want to do that I really truly think will help is I don't know if I can talk about much, but I'm, like, this is what I think is like mushrooms. Like really, when you take a good dose of mushrooms, it really kills your ego in a sense. It really makes you realize you aren't as cool as you think you are. It'll be important for me to continue to do like the mushrooms really, like I said, it makes you realize everyone's literally the same. We're all just one. So it's like I need to do those after big fights, because after big fights your ego gets all that immediate attention, all the stimulation of the fight, all this. You feel a different way, you feel a certain way. Not everyone's different, but that's how I feel. I'm like, but I'm aware of it. It's kind of, I don't know, but I think just having a healthy relationship with mushrooms and realizing that I'm not as cool as I think I am is important. But
you do that after big fights? Like that's not a tradition?
No, but I need to. I have done it after, I've done it 3 times, not necessarily right after big fights, but you know, just kind of in between and stuff. But I think that'll be, I have thought about it a lot, like when I just sit and kind of do my, like I've had talks with Danny too, like after big fights, I think it would be important if we get away from the social media, just like, and be by ourselves. But you never know, like sitting here saying that, like I could blow up and turn into a Connor or Mike Tyson, be crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know I'm a little crazy. I feel like you gotta be a little crazy, especially if you want to fight.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I have these ideas of what I should do and what I shouldn't do and stuff like that, but we'll see how it plays out. I think I'm on a good path, and I think I have the right people around me to help me stay grounded and stuff like that.
Is it like, are you the happiest when you're about to fight or when you're stepping into the fight? Like is that like the best feeling that you have in your life?
That's a good question. Yeah, fight camp, like I was saying, like fight camp makes you extra disciplined that you're not gonna, like you have to be, like I have to make weight. I have to show up in shape. Like I don't have to, I mean I can miss this practice, I can miss that practice. But I have to, like I'm saying, I could, some fighters might be like, I'm gonna skip this practice, but like, you have to show up when you don't want to. And it's like you're extra disciplined, and I think that discipline is what makes you like Jocko said, discipline equals freedom. And it's like, it makes sense. Like the more disciplined you are, the more free you are. And so I'd say, yeah, probably just being in fight. I love being in fight camp. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's something. Just that discipline. You grow so much. Every fight camp, you grow so much. You like evolve as a human, like that you don't necessarily wouldn't do unless you went through a 6-week fight camp. So.
What about when you're like actually in the cage? Is there like any better feeling than that?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much top, like the top of the. That's like the top of the high, is like being in there, in shape, ready to go. Yeah, I don't think there's At least I haven't experienced it. Maybe having kids, maybe being a dad, maybe that'll top it. Like maybe when a baby's born, like that could top it. But I don't know. As far as what I've experienced, nothing tops being in the cage.
If you could fight high, would you?
No, I wouldn't. No. I definitely train jiu-jitsu. I'll smoke and do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like I'll train high, but I won't fight or spar high. Just like some people can. I know the Diaz brothers probably say, hell yeah, they prefer it. Like everyone's different. But I think like, you know, I think there's science when you smoke. Your reaction time is a little bit slower.
Yeah.
And for me, my whole game's on my reaction time. My whole game's on just going on my instinct and doing what my body needs to do at that time. So I don't think I'd fight high. I think I'd still probably whoop most of these guys' asses, but I think I could be high and beat Jose. I don't think that'd be an issue, but I'd if I had an option, no, I would choose not to be.
Have you fought, have you like sparred in the gym with guys that like tell you that, I mean, because it's one thing to like believe it in your head that like I'm as good as like Henry Cejudo, TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz, like I'm as good as all those guys. But have you actually like sparred with them in the gym, like that you know that you're on that level?
I haven't sparred those guys. I've sparred like, I remember I think I was 4-0, and Henry Cejudo brought, I won't say his name, but he brought this kid in who's in the UFC. He was a black belt jiu-jitsu. I was 4-0 at the time. I think I was 21. I was young. And this dude's black belt jiu-jitsu, and he's in the UFC, and he's fighting a couple weeks out. He had a fight. He was like fighting in a couple weeks. I wasn't even in camp, and they brought him in, and he was doing sparring rounds. So they write your name on the rounds, and I'm like, 2 in a row. Usually, if you're not in fight camp, you're not gonna do two rounds in a row in the cage. Yeah. So we do 2 rounds in a row. And then the first round, I dropped him with a body shot. The fight would have been over. I would have won that fight and like when I didn't know who this kid is. Like I didn't know, like he was my friend. So we were sparring. Like at that time, like we were fighting basically. We were in a fight. And I dropped him with a body shot. He gets up, like takes a little break, whatever. Then going into the second round, I'm like tired as now, and Henry Cejudo was kind of upset that I was busting up his guy. So Henry's like, no, we want him for a third. We want him for a third in a row. I'm not even in camp. I'm not in shape to go 3 5s. And I'm only 4 or 5-0 at the time. And and Benson comes in the cage. These guys no one calls us out. We don't get tired. And I'm sitting there gasping for air. And Benson's yelling at me. He's man. So I'm like, you're right, whatever, we don't get tired. So I'm in that, like, so at that time, I'm like, damn, I just went 3 5s with a guy who's in the UFC, who's winning fights in the UFC, black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I already whooped his like, I already beat him in the first round, technically. Yeah. The third round, I was gassed out. He did end up choking me rear naked, but I'm like, that's what I knew. I'm like, damn, I'm competing with guys in the UFC right now, and I'm not in my head even, like, I knew I wasn't supposed to be in the UFC back then. I knew I still had a ton of work to improve, and I still know that, and I still think like that. Like, I still have a ton of work to do, but I believe I can go and fight anybody in the division right now, and I believe I could win. Like, truly believe that. And it's so nice and important too. It's like right now I have Tim in my corner, and there's no one that knows my striking, like my combos, like what I'm seeing, what they're doing, like our level, our chemistry when it comes to my striking, when he holds mitts, all that. No one knows it better than him. Yeah. And then no one knows my grappling and my jiu-jitsu better than him and Tanquinho. Because Tanquinho, I've been grappling with him live, competition grappling for the last couple of years, like hard. And he's the best no-gi grappler in the world. And him and Tim are gonna be in my corner. So it's like, they know my game as well as I know my game, and that's such a benefit to do, because I train with them on like a daily basis and like spar with them and grapple live with them. So I feel like that's a huge benefit too. It's like having those guys in my corner.
Does Tim coach many guys?
I'm his only fighter right now. He likes to focus on teaching jiu-jitsu and then focus his attention on what I'm doing. So, which is nice.
And he's retired from fighting himself, right?
Yeah, he says if he gets the itch, he'll fight. But and I think that's a good idea because like if you don't feel like I need to get in there and fight, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Like it's not good. So he said if he gets the itch, he'll fight again, which is good. He might not, but I think right now what we're doing is like gonna be big. Like it's gonna be a big deal. And like I need him focused on me, and I need my team focused. Like it's a selfish sport, it's a selfish game, but I need those guys focused on me winning my next fight. And like that's how they get paid too. So I win, he wins. So.
Yeah.
1, 2.
It's interesting that like obviously you got the highest of aspirations, and Tim's young and he's not like a coach, you know, like.
Yeah.
There would be some people who would look at your situation and probably say like, yeah, at some point you're gonna outgrow Tim or something, you know? Some people might say that.
Right, no, yeah. The thing that makes Tim such a good coach is he was in Bellator, he was on the Ultimate Fighter, he's been a fighter. He understands the injuries, the fight camp, the weight cuts. He's done it all, he's been through it all. He's made the walk to some big fights. Like he gets that. And like if you go watch Tim teach at jiu-jitsu, he's a black belt under Tankino. If you go watch him teach at jiu-jitsu, you'd be like, damn, he's a good coach.
Yeah.
Like he's a really, really good coach.
Well, eventually there's got to be a new wave of coaches come through the sport, right? It can't be the same guys like forever.
Correct. Yeah, I think he's gonna be one of the like whether he wants to venture off and get more fighters. Build more fighters, like that could be a possibility. But I think, yeah, he's gonna be like everyone talked about Frost and like all those guys. Like he's gonna be one of those guys if he wants to be. Like, but yeah, I think a lot of my skill, like he's been even when I moved down here and he was still fighting, he was coaching me. Even when he was still fighting, like it was still holding mitts for me. He was still cornering me, helping me with my diet and all that stuff. So he's really been coaching me since my entire pro career, and then like 4 or 5 of my amateur fights too.
Yeah.
So like we have good chemistry, and like there's certain things like I can point out in videos. Like even my last fight, he calls out a certain move that I would necessarily wasn't thinking about or saw, and I throw it. Like if he calls something out, I'll see the right timing for it, and I'll throw it, and that'll land. And that happens, and I can point that out a couple different times in all my fights, like that he's seeing something that I'm not seeing, or that I just wasn't thinking about. That land could change the whole fight. So.
Well, and he can dedicate all of his time to you, like all of his time. Like he knows you so well, whereas like some of these other coaches, like it's not necessarily a bad thing, but they've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 20 guys. You just can't get that as familiar with each one of them.
Right. Yeah. And like he's like, I think he's almost 30. I'm 20. Like we're friends too. It's not just like he's my coach. He's my friend too. Like we're cruising over to go ride scooters. It's not just it's a coach relationship, but it's also a friend relationship. And we lived together when I first moved down here for a couple years, so I think it's important someone knows you that well.